Hello, everybody. My name is Raoul. Well, I talk a little bit what I've done before, what I studied. I studied in Germany fashion marketing, but at a private university because I like to go clubbing a lot, so I wasn't very able to go to state university, which is other way around in Germany, the better one than the private ones. And then started working actually at H&M at the time, and worked as visual merchandiser for whole Germany, opened 53 stores there, and then came after a while working there. I said, okay, I don't speak another language, didn't speak English whatsoever, and packed my bags and moved over to London. Here I had the lucky chance to work with a fashion agent and got to know a lot of people in the bigger industry in terms of buying and retail. So he was an agent selling to all the big stores like Harrods, Selfridges and everything. So I got to know all the people who are quite influential in the world of retail, sales, buying, and let's say the cash in London. Wasn't quite enough for me, so in my free time I did trend scouting and traveled a lot to South America, Australia, South Africa to find new brands which literally no one would look at because busy fashion week schedules here in Europe. And so those brands which are incredibly creative, very comparable with the quality of what we have here, and also very interesting about it that they don't have such a big high street like we do. So I scouted a couple of brands, brought them over into the UK, sold them very much to many stores here, found them an agent, but in this time I thought, okay, these people need a platform to connect. So I launched in 2007 a fashion networking website called 1974.com, which gave young creatives the platform to connect, work on projects, start producing together whatever they need. Everyone gave their part. For example, if you're a fashion designer, you needed a photographer, so they could meet, start up the little collaborations. And as we've been a little bit silly, and I never had a business before, we spent a lot of money at the time on developing the site, had no money left.
Can I just ask a question going back? Why did you want to start that business? What did you see an obvious gap in the market that fashion professionals weren't connecting with each other? Or
at the time when we started, Facebook just came up really big. I think at the time still MySpace was one of the big social media websites, but Twitter didn't really exist and everything. So there was, for us, finding a gap that actually for the creative industry especially was no little platform there to meet and find people alike. So, and people who needed help, for example, that a photographer needed a website so they could find a web designer, the graphic designer who makes the layout for lookbooks. So people could find each other on there and exchange actually their, whatever they can do best. And that was the reason to start, because I had no real network here in the UK, so that was for me the point, okay, let's build my own network through the site. And down the line when we build it, we spend a lot of money on building because now everything is open source, you can have everything for free. At the time you couldn't, and we had no cash to advertise the site. So we said, okay, what is our value, which is the members. And we picked the best members, and therefore we had a collection of really good people in art, illustration, fashion, photography and everything. So we started an online magazine, which was then Schon. So it was initially just a marketing project. I have no idea of publishing, or I never learned anything about it. I can't write very well except emails, and I was able to find really good people to help me on this project and really trusting that this will be successful. was always meant to be an online magazine because I listened to the talk. Everyone said, oh, everything will be going online, print is dead, which I surely now can say it's not. And iPad, iPhone and everything is strong, but it won't replace, especially in the high price, let's say, luxury market, it won't replace the print because people still like to touch things and also to keep things for themselves. And that's why we went into print at the time, because one guy from Condé Nast, which is from the Vogue group, said, okay, I'd like to distribute it. And now we are in 43 countries in print and had very, very big names and very big models also working with us. Like you see, it's Naomi Campbell on there. On the newest one is Isabelle Fontana. We're just shooting tomorrow, actually, our cover for the February issue, which is The Future Is Now. So we have some 16-year-old ladies on the cover. So that's the little story of what I've done so far.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions at that point about sort of Raoul's career and how he's made the move from maybe visual merchandising into running a magazine before we move on to the running of the magazine? They'll all come up and ask you questions at the end. So none of them will ask you now, and then there'll be like a queue at the end.
Yeah, really don't be shy. I'm really happy to listen to anything.
Okay, so in terms of running the magazine on a day-to-day basis, if you could explain to us how you, particularly for the guys that are sitting here today, they're interested, a lot of them, in internships and working and getting experience in the industry. Can you explain how you use interns within the magazine?
For me, it's the importance because I find the word interns is always seen as negative, or that people do the coffee or the copy machine. We are a very, very small team, and for me, it's you all chose what you study and want to be, so you should be able to work in this job. So when people work, for example, for us, they do the job. If you study journalism, you will write. If you are studying styling, fashion promotion, everything, you will style. Because it's, for me, it's no point, and it's a waste of space to have somebody to make me coffee, because I can do it really by myself.
Which we do here. Our students have to do a placement as part of their
course.
It's
and
good. They get marked on that, but that we certainly don't want that to be the only time they're going out into industry. We want them, as you all know, to be out in the Easter holidays, over the summer, when you have vast amounts of time that are available. So we have to mark them on what they do. So it's getting a balance, but like you say, we want them to be doing it as many internships as they can.
As many as they can. And also I can see with my career, I learned just learning by doing. So as said, I didn't speak English at the time, so I had to learn it, and now I can actually write better than my journalists sometimes. And it's just the idea that in any part, I never produced a photo story, now I produce campaigns. It's just learning by doing, in a way that you get as much experience as possible to learn the part. And also many times you study something and you're not quite sure if it's right, and you might go into an internship and you see what other people do and you think, this is great and this is what I want to do. So you have your basic education, but then you go in a complete different direction as you actually considered yourself or your parents ask you to do, and brings you, I think always you need to love to wake up in the morning, because you will work more in your life than you do have actually free time. So
that's true. So in terms of when you employ or you take on interns, what do you look for? What can these guys be either doing to impress you, or what kind of things should they focus on their CVs? I know personalities can't be changed, but what can they focus on within their personality to make sure they're getting hired for internships?
Well, for me, the most important is confidence. It's also that you are willing to learn. For me, it's not the most important, because I know people won't have as much experience. So if you say, okay, I want to do this, and you're confident you can do this if you put effort into it. It's if it's styling, and also everyone does everything in my office, especially because we are a small team, but that you don't say, oh, I'm not doing this, or complaints, but it starts already with a CV. When I see spelling mistakes, you are not in. This something, and people just, I always say, I mean, you have friends, just let them read your CV before you send it. And then when you have an invitation, it doesn't need to be suit or something, but be on time. These are all little things where, most probably me being German, I like to have being on time, but it's some tiny little details. And then when you come across confident about what you're willing to do, then it's actually 50% of the job you have already. So this is where I see.
So it's focusing on those things and not necessarily worrying if you haven't got lots of industry experience already on your CV. Good, because that's what I've been trying to reassure, particularly our second years recently, because they're applying for internships now. So does anyone have any specific questions to ask Raoul about any of the things we've spoken about? I'm going to have to rush over with my microphone now so that we can hear you.
I know you mentioned like fashion students being in interns, but I think something that we're on graphic design here that we've sort of struggled on is finding fashion magazines that want to hire graphic design students, because a lot of the time the ones that I've found that have been advertised are all asking for fashion students, and I don't think they've sort of considered the layout and stuff like that. Is that something which you guys hire,
for me, it's other way around, because fashion students, I always say, okay, you want to create clothing, so go into a company who creates clothing. So you learn actually what you do. I need graphic designers to do the layout, because you might have other ideas which I don't have. You have skills which I might not have, and also it's the freedom. All what my graphic designers get is a bunch of pictures and tell them, okay, lay it out, and then I tell them, okay, make it a little bit different, or I'd advise them. So of course the magazine has a signature and a look to it, and it needs to be followed, but we don't have templates. Like when you go to the big magazines like GQ, a friend of mine, she just started being a graphic designer at GQ. All she has a template in InDesign where it says, fill in the text, put in the picture, and that's all she does every day. Therefore, I mean, it is again great to work for a big publication. It looks very good in a magazine or in your CV, but in terms of graphic design, I really like them. But then it's also how you make your portfolio. So many people who study graphic design like to illustrate, so they draw a lot, hand drawing and everything. You need to show that you are able to do illustrations, graphic design, layout, as well as drawing. Sometimes people are not able to hand draw anymore. So it's also journalists can't handwrite, they just type. But I think if you show a passion, if you have like your little notebook, I always like when people come to, if there's no loose paper in there, everything is really nice organized, but every little thing out of their work, whatever they do, even their private stuff they like to do, when they sketch or anything, I see, okay, there's a passion behind it, and I like this because I get inspired and motivated by it. So, and then there's a good relationship.
Yeah, brilliant. So would you say bring sketchbooks and things like that to interviews? Because we found quite a mix. I know my friend the other day was told to always bring sketchbooks, and then we've been told before to never bring them, so it's a bit of a...
I like this. I personally, I can't say what is right or wrong. I always say be organized in it. Don't have 15 boxes, loose paper in there, and oh, I done this as well, and then something falls out. Make your, and also create your portfolio in these terms to the client or to the interview specific. So if you go for a magazine, show pages of layout and don't have only hand drawings in there, because there's no point for them hand drawings, because you won't hand draw. But then I like to see sketchbooks as well, because I see if they have real talent, if there's illustrations to be done or enhancement of pictures. But if you do graphic design or you do retouch or anything with it, then just bring it all, but keep it to what you feel is the best work, and then also show it to your friend and say, is this cool, what I show there?
Thank you. Thank you. And if I can just add on to that, I think your point about whether you should take sketchbooks, whether you shouldn't take sketchbooks. So maybe take a well-organised sketchbook and take some digital work, and then you can at least say, do you want to see my sketchbook? Do you
Yeah.
want, if they say no, then don't force them. If someone like Raoul had said, yeah, I'd love to see that, then you can have that conversation. But if you've got both your options there, then you don't have to worry, and then you can focus on, because everybody's different, all employers are going to
Yeah.
work in different ways, aren't they? So
That's why I can't say what is right or wrong. I can just
So you
personally say.
be organised and
Yeah.
cover all your bases.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Oh,
This is more of a general question that I want to ask. Because,
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Because some people around here, a lot of people I know actually kind of struggle to find what they really want to do in the future. So I want to ask you a question. What motivated you, inspired you to do this
What inspired me to do this?
industry, to work in this industry, like specifically?
I've always been told be positive. If I could choose now, I wouldn't work in this industry. But it led me into it. I always had an interest in fashion and creativity, but I always liked timeless work because in season and fashion design changes every 6 months. So therefore, what we create with the magazine is more timeless. Timeless photography. You can look in a year's time and you think it's still nice to look at. But in terms how you find your way or chose to go in the industry, that's why I mentioned before, try out. An internship is something you invest your time, and every employer should appreciate that. So if you say, okay, I do 3 weeks, I spare 3 weeks of my time to do unpaid work, that I get an overview if this is something I would like to do. So no one should say, because for us employers, sounds awful to say cheap labor, but also it's good inspiration for yourself to find the way, okay, I have the chance to see, do I like this? And then because some journalists especially say, I'm really good in I would love to work in newspaper environment. And then they go there once, and then they see the pressing deadlines. They have to work so many hours and be super fast, no spelling mistakes and everything. But some people are really good in it. Some people like to write for editorials, so why don't you make an internship in both? Try to get in a newspaper and try to get in a fashion magazine to see what is suitable for us. What led me there? I think the path, what I chose, that my interest in creative people. So, and I'm surrounded by great, great talent who can most probably do more than I do.
Any more questions?
When you're looking for photographers
Yeah.
in the kind of creative direction, like what do you look for? Would you consider taking an intern who is a photographer?
Photographers, I always say photographers should intern with a photographer. So try to contact, and more than no one can say. The photographer you like the most, send them your CV and tell them you would love to work with them to see how it works. More than no, they can't say. And most of the time, I never thought when we started the magazine that I would sit with Naomi Campbell there and we shoot her for the cover, but it did happen. So if you convince you're good enough and you can make somebody sure, and I will have, and you're not feeling, I don't want to carry the light, or I don't do the cable, I'm a photographer. No, you're not. So nowadays it's really hard, and try to find your own style. And then if you look over somebody's shoulder, we have photographers who are 17 in the magazine, but then also we have Ellen von Unwerth, who earns lots of money for creating campaigns. If she's a better photographer, I don't know. But it's just, I think it's the effort, and also photography you can learn here, the technique, but you can't see the frame. No one can teach you what you see through this camera. So, and this is the talent about photography. And there's so many who haven't even studied photography, but for the technology and everything, I think you should. And I'd say for a magazine, for layout, graphic, post-production, that's interesting to go to a magazine, but you will learn this all in a photography studio, which I think it's much better for you to see, okay, is this the right one to do?
Okay, good question, thank you. Any more? No? No more questions? Well, they will all be queuing up at the end to ask you questions,
Okay.
so I'm going to wrap it up now so we've got time to do that. I just have something to present to you. Every single one of our speakers today has received one of our beautiful Vision 2012 awards, so thank you very much for coming
Oh,
on.
thank you very
To
much.
Mind Your Ravensbourne. And thank you, Raoul.
Thank you. Thank you.